All right, so team, everybody who cares about America's future, this 28th Amendment, these open market concepts. I'll get to why this logo is the perfect thing for this mission soon, but let's really dive into how we define these articles of corporation and this 28th Amendment and why it's best to separate the language of this unique privatized backup government and insurance strategy, and it needs to be all of those things in order for it to exist. It needs to be a fully privatized backup government strategy such that it can be an insurance program for government bailouts and shutdowns. We're going to have the capability, once we all find a way to trust the architecture and build the market around the voting tools and the social media forum like tools for exploring these issues at scale, we'll be able to vote on wording of bills and sections of bills. You'll get alerts to your identity based product. You can drive the valuation of having that overall architectural structure by marketing these features, which can only be enabled by the right identity alert structure. But then, yes, you can set all kinds of configurations on different bills that are emerging, and you will get to weigh in specifically as a government of the people on the wording of those bills. You can do that on a state level, you can do that on a federal level, but we need to not monopolize a core architecture like that, which can be immensely valuable and it's an extension of our identity. And so here's exactly how we define this overall unique government. And it's an extension of open source. That's why I've placed this video in the open market collaboration concept. But in order to succeed at all of this, to have this government, this backup government, we really need an this interactive transcript system that I've been trying to sell. And we need to understand how it relates to an interactive patent and pitch system. We need to rally around this central pillar and consider a new way of collaborating on markets to achieve larger goals. And that's going to be this grid collaboration on open market layers as a concept. And then we're building an overall platform. We're trying to build one advanced digital platform with government level capabilities as a backup government. We're going to enable that through that interactive transcript system and how that enables an interactive patent and alert system. And it will phenomenally strengthen the patent market and networking market opportunities related to developing solutions in our world. We'll really be focused on engineering the depth in these conversations such that we're really exploring these issues and developing really, really complex and interesting strategies that the public can follow along with through this interactive transcript and patent and pitch alert system. And your patent will be built on concepts, technology concepts, which you can have an interactive learning path to understand, all in a unified system. But again, we're defining how to build this overall market democratically. And so that's why I have Article 2. So we've talked about Article 1 of the 28th Amendment. This is going to be the most complex amendment, but you talk about defining this relationship with this digital strategy, and you encapsulate that in one amendment. You can make revisions to that as you wish, but encapsulate this in one amendment such that it's unified with this other document and the two share a lasting relationship. The wording between the two maintains the same, but it's the same wording. The founding articles of Strategic Pivot match the wording of the 28th Amendment, and then you manage your addendums through Strategic Pivot. And your addendums are how you define the markets which make it all possible. And so we're talking about adding a new major market vertical or platform layer to this overall grid. And you are talking about this, though the companies in each major market vertical manage it and they're in control of the architecture, there's also a cyber force that this enables, because through object-oriented design, and this is to every company's advantage, they eliminate costs by working together on these central layers for compliance and security. And the compliance would be data standardization. For example, in medical records, it's requests for information. But if every one of these industries positions itself this way, it can recruit much more talent, and the population will be much more educated on how these systems work. There will be more access to opportunity and more continual growth as a result of these overall approaches. And so looking at this interactive transcript system and how we launch this, students in universities and people chasing after this, you're giving opportunity to experiment with building better versions of these tools always. And so there will always be people experimenting with these technologies, which means the company is perfecting them, can field and recruit talent to the maximum extent possible. And so you define your major market verticals, your addendums and revision strategies. The addendums become how business rights are represented in this overall platform design as we build this overall grid democratically into the best way we are able to. And so then you've defined how you can make revisions, and let's do that. So you can have politically driven changes from the most stringent vote the political realm demands, because this is a very complex separation of powers, and so when we try to change our government, we make that very hard. You have to get overwhelming majority vote, and the president can't veto it. Otherwise, you would have to get something like, I think, 90% of the vote, and you could, I think, overthrow the veto. You could look at something like that. But we define this as a government of the people, how we define some of these revisions. And a Fortune 500 board would be able to, like Congress, checks and balances, vote, and as they progressively vote higher and higher, it could go back and forth for a little bit, potentially. And otherwise, if a change falls under a major market vertical's scoping, they have platform level autonomy, so that for universal product coding and transaction systems, each of those, and identity-based protocols, those are all defined based upon the competitors in those markets, and they all weigh in on those conversations individually, and they can collaborate with other platforms and to build this overall set of protocols, platform layers. For example, if you want to come up with real solutions for mental health and gun control, you want to have relationships between psychology and purchasing systems, between psychology and identity products, between psychology and hybrid learning platforms, which will have portals into counseling solutions and all of those mental health resources. And you want to be talking about how we're managing these grids together. Some of it's how we manage the policies and the approach in the industry in mental health to some extent. And so as a government of the people, we need to talk about how we want to be affected by these systems, and this is the ideal that America was founded for, having the ability to affect the systems that are built to make the rules that govern your life. And these have to do with a lot of different things. There are mental health related pieces of these issues. There are technological related pieces of these issues, especially now. And that's how we're going to solve these problems. So now we've got this big initiative with partnering the government and with this unique brand. So let's define some presidential privileges, because we've talked about this interactive transcript system. And so here's the really cool thing. Donald Trump could partner with Elon Musk right now as the CVO of Strategic Pivot, or Kamala Harris could partner with me because I have all these unique strategies. Kamala Harris could partner with somebody else if she wants to. And we go for building these interactive learning paths in these ways. This will ultimately, you'll see my third issue here in this section here, talks about a CHI tax program and direct approval channel for the president. You can build a really cool interactive tax program that boosts people's retirement by, instead of having the money go out in grants to sponsor research in different areas, you let people invest in the company, and you give them rules like you can't pull out the money for, make it 5 to 10 years. I think 5 is reasonable. But now you're getting people to chase after the skills needed to build the solutions such that they can understand what's the better pitch for an industry and which investment to make. And that's all part of your advanced government modeling. You need people to understand those things with the economy. It enables a form of stability, really. Some of the stock market is psychological. A lot of the stock market is psychological, based upon how people view the overall competition in the marketplace. And if you're really talking about the pivots in strategy, you will understand which of these business models or overall market approaches you think is going to be the strongest. There's a lot to look into and try to understand there, but you can build a better system for this with the right overall market approach. Okay, so now let's talk about a cyber force. You're going to be building this overall identity access management grid. That's part of what makes this all possible. Realistically, and we'll be defining, like each of these boxes, we're going to have a central cyber force, and that's going to relate to the management of the identity access management grid. That's going to be their closest relationship, but also the encryption stacking. And it's interesting, Google, and I'll talk about this in another continuous improvement video, but I can actually prove I was onto the foundations of what Google is trying to do with the Titan M before they made any of that information public. And so I'm right there with their best engineers in terms of architectural understanding. That's what I liked studying the most in college. I've had all kinds of books on components and why they were built the way they did and some of the physics involved. I enjoyed thinking about architecture on that level. I really originally wanted to study electrical engineering. Anyway, Cyberforce is going to have that, and where they're going to be managing that grid, and you can do a form of encryption stacking, and that's the way I suggest using that Titan M. And they haven't really talked about that yet. I don't know if that's implied in some of the designs that they've released, but you can certainly use that architecture for this. And then you've got a brilliant set of protocols for between these cloud layers and an overall identity access management strategy and an encryption handling strategy between these layers. Companies will have their data encrypted in the ways they encrypt that layer. But again, if you're feathering together these major market verticals, here's what you're really looking at here. You have these major market verticals that power these overall platform layers. So you can imagine this platform coming together over this set of identity access protocols more than anything else. This is going to allow us to run advanced coding features or screening features for a cyber force to protect us in the modern age and do things with drone threat level categorization and all kinds of things. But you have to build this ecosystem for this. And one of the things you'll have to do is organize to have major market verticals for the library, secured library structures, and the ways that you screen these, build these compilers in this overall strategy, such that you can screen different layers of language and overall analyze what might be happening there in a approved way. And so if you have these major market verticals, you can develop very sophisticated approach screening procedures for each one of these layers, because they're going to be different, but there will be uniformity across one of these layers if it's artfully built because of object-oriented design and the way products come together in the modern age. And this is the hugest opportunity to explain to the American people. And so I need somebody like Elon to really, I'm sure you understand this. And so now we have a strategy where we can feather together the teams that are building requirements for major market verticals to power industries based upon these cloud, the best way to optimize these cloud stacks, which optimizes continuous improvement potential, because now you can engage deep conversations, for example, on this transcript system and how to feather that together and optimize the market. Do the same thing for psychology solutions, which we want to see answers for with different shootings and the things that we need to manage there. And those are a lot of complex pieces coming together, and we need a tool to work through these discussions. And that's why I said Article 1 of the Strategic Pivot founding articles. But now you've got a strategy to enable a very complex cyber force for screening code on a lot of different levels, and you've compartmentalized how you're accessing system resources by major market verticals such that you can build very sophisticated strategies for compartmentalizing personal information and advanced AI security features that can use your information to use wearables and different security systems to enable an overall security shield that basically shadows you. There's a really advanced form of ways we can talk about that, and a lot of people will be scared of that technology if they don't understand how it works in a deep way. So we need to be driving the understanding of these conversations. And so let's talk about one last key thing about this interactive transcript system. When people are trying to object to a bid through social media, you'll be able to filter comments and figure out exactly who's really trying to understand the issues. And I can explain how this interactive transcript system builds a very realistic open market. It's not just limited to college students. You actually build all kinds of cool interactive tools to make issues easier to approach and understand. That's where the market's going to be in this overall approach, and the value overall. That's how you build your interactive transcript system, and I can describe how to succeed at that. But let's move on with the Articles of Incorporation and the 28th Amendment. So the president gets the CVO strategic pivot for these interactive learning paths, and I'll explain that in the features video. They get a Cyber Force Joint Chief of Staff based upon the way this overall network comes together. It's the best way you can enable that. We need a plan for some of those things, and you need to build one platform in order to have these screening features in the most effective way possible, because you need to be able to see how things are tied together, and that's part of your screening process. And so we need an overall strategy for that. Simultaneously, you don't want to have some sort of issue in advanced world and not have a way of sorting through that code. So you want to build a way of archiving that code and having a very complex way of managing this system. So that's the major market vertical strategy, the open grid collaboration on open market layers, and how we have then multiple companies verifying a core layer of security, saying it's the best way to do it, the best foundation for the market, the best security requirements for an industry, all of those pieces. Best architectural strategy for rights and everything in the modern age. Okay, I will talk last in this section, and this is related to this bailout insurance. I will talk last in this section after I talk about how I've really already talked about this cyber force, so I skipped ahead by talking about this in the presidential privileges a little bit. Interactive tax program this will enable, because you're building a backup insurance. So you have a SP board and your major market vertical model for bailout and shutdown insurance. You have a tax that this Fortune 500 board is ascribing to these digital products, such that the government doesn't feel it needs to create a digital tax, because these are very these businesses can be made very, very profitable. And so building this backup insurance, also if you're a tech company, you want to continue networking to build other things. And so you build this overall model that builds this backup insurance, and it creates a market where there's more collaboration and more product development overall. So there's more opportunity to network there and continue to grow. And each major market vertical will have its own costs. So you define platform autonomy and ways for businesses in that layer to come together to manage the costs in that layer. And then they also have this Fortune 500 board that's saying, hey, and everybody that's part of this overall strategic pivot brand, which is way more efficient overall and enables all of these advanced strategies. Everybody who's in this strategic pivot brand also pays this overall tax, which enables this insurance program. And that's what allows us to have a backup government plan, because we need a budget, we need to drive a budget, and the government should let this organization create this backup tax so that this insurance exists in the market. And this is a unique set of things to ask for, and so you'd have to build an entire campaign around this. Now let's talk about this interactive tax program, because you're building this fund. It's a backup insurance for governments and shutdowns. And now you've got this fund that you're building. And there are a lot of different ways that you can use that fund once we get more efficient as a nation. Now, governments are always going to be about driving industrial policy, and really that enables a form of class mobility. Even if we were to perfect all technology, you want to have a way of driving different challenges and recruiting different people. And so let's talk about how companies are making a bunch of money, and you're in this digital category and you're building this fund. It's a backup government strategy. And now, how do you guys want to use that? Because you're trying to drive more growth. You got a government strategy. It's very capitalist oriented. You're trying to focus on driving more networking in industry. One of the coolest ways you can possibly manage industrial policy and drive grant programs for driving more growth, the things people want to see in green energy, the things people want to see in the economy, you say they have to pay a certain amount, or you can combine this with what you argue for in income tax, but the strategic pivot board would be building this fund from this self-managed digital tax. They're in control of it, the Fortune 500 board, and the major market verticals will all be positioned to negotiate for each level of industry. And you'll be positioned to have this very effective budgeting model. It's a backup government across all these digital features, which you're going to be able to vote on bills and wording in every level of bill through the internet, everybody. And so you can have your maximum government of the people for the lowest possible cost. And this is the only way you can do that, is through technology. That answer will only be true through technology. And so the biggest, smallest government you can have, lowest possible, most optimal budget, but biggest maximum amount of opportunity to be included in what government really is on every level, and how it affects the economy and the legal systems, related legal systems and regulations which drive our lives. You could make it very easy for everybody to vote, but you might want to have a cross-reference. This is what you would have to argue about. Do you want to make it such that you have to understand the issue for your vote to be counted? You have to understand a certain amount of the issue? Because that's where it gets to be a gray area, and that's why I say you'll always have this relationship between government, but at least you have this checks and balances system which tries to drive the honor for the conversation. Because some of these things are very complicated and people are almost breaking themselves. I've had some mental health related hospitalizations specifically because of the importance of this plan and what this can mean for people to access strategies and markets to be able to collaborate and succeed and develop skills, even if they don't have role models who really understand those things. And so this is about role models in families and a stronger overall community, more networking, a better government of the people. It truly is. So you can create this interactive tax program as part of that, and it drives more engagement with understanding the skills to pivot to the future. For all companies, for governments, for everybody who wants to have good jobs and understand what's happening in the economy, having this interactive tax program structured this way, which benefits retirement, but people have to understand which companies have the best strategies in these bids. Everybody's going to be better at understanding how to explore this bid process and solution development process. So collaboration will be stronger. Now we've got something that's immensely valuable as an overall backup government with this interesting tax program and advanced way of looking at collaboration in the modern age. Now we have something that's immensely valuable. And what's the best launch strategy for this? Well, the best launch strategy I argue for in a lot of ways, and I will convince Elon Musk and so many other technologists of this, you give 50% of this equity to the Federal Reserve in this very unique brand, because it can be a totally privatized backup government Once this equity is released 30 or 50 years from now, I suggest we can do it in 30, but we'll drive the valuation of this education-related market through this strategic pivot set of tools. Education will probably in and of itself grow new market opportunities and be profiting hugely, because I suggest education having its own major market vertical. And then strategic pivot, this is more focused on the interactive transcript system, and then strategic pivot is focused more on the interactive patent alert system, how these concepts grow into enterprise management products, which you have to sign an NDA and work with a company to really collaborate more on how their architecture works. But this is the way companies can protect themselves and enable this overall collaboration, and strategic pivot will work on that. And so Elon, you're going to have tremendous interest in that. Think about the ways I could be impressing you, and you could be like, you know what, I would give this guy a little bit of access to how some of the foundational structures work at X.com, and maybe you just want to see my pivot. And so you don't want to give me access to that. There are right industries you can build this product for that, but it comes with a non-disclosure agreement and all these things. You can build tools like that. You can have a very advanced cookies logging system in the background that looks at who's accessing these things. But overall, the strategic pivot entity is going to be mostly about pitches and presenting pitches and this patent alert system and the sales leads that you can generate from that. And so that's this overall government of the people and the 28th Amendment. And so you give this equity to the Federal Reserve. This will probably grow to be a 15 or a $30 trillion company pretty quickly, because it's a way of looking at these key levels of infrastructure, and it's a core government strategy and set of tools for doing this. And so it allows it to be this backup insurance. It allows it to have this potential to be this backup government privatized strategy. The only way you can do this is if you come up with a strategy like this where it's not a monopoly, but it almost seems like it is, but it's not managed that way. It's managed democratically. And so it's the only way you can have something like this, I argue. We can argue about that, though, or debate it. And that's what I think is America's most promising mode for the future. And then we debate what's the best way to organize these markets for opportunity, for market design, for the best capitalist opportunity. How do we collaborate to power these markets to the optimal levels? And you're totally positioned for that. And then you can talk about how these complex systems come together so that you can have psychology solutions as they relate to gun control and background checks and all of these related pieces. This is the modern age. Thank you for watching.